Well, the bond issue of $8 million is necessary if the school district is going to continue to function properly. We have problems here on these 6 campuses.
What are the problems that you have?
The problems are overcrowding in the classrooms, which of course the state frowns upon. Overcrowded facilities, restrooms, cafeteria and food preparation spaces. All of these are overcrowded. They were built years ago when the schools were a fraction of the size and enrollment that they are now. And we've added portables that have saturated the campus. In one particular instance on Alta Mesa, we have 3 stools there and 1 trough for 310 boys to use. Now, in other areas, we have classrooms that are being used for feeding areas, for cafeterias, and sometimes we have to walk through a kitchen to get to the classroom that's used for a cafeteria space.
What would happen if this bond issue failed?
Well, there are a number of things that could happen. We could lose our accreditation, and eventually, perhaps the school district could be dissolved.
There's little or no industry in the Wilmer-Hutchins area, and much of the rapidly expanding population lives in trailer parks, apartments, or government-owned housing. So the burden of financing the school expansion program falls on the property owner. He'll have his chance to make his voice heard this Saturday. For Channel 8 News on the Move, this is Judi Hanna.
With the decision this week by the Fort Worth City Council to hire new minority trainees for the fire department, the situation for minority job seekers in Fort Worth is looking a little better, but there's still a long way to go. I asked Human Relations Commission Executive Director Orra Compton today what areas the commission will move into next in order to find jobs for minority members.
Our problem doesn't narrow down so much in terms of departments as it does in terms of job classifications. We've got, it's fairly easy for us to recruit minority people at the job entry level in the lowest paying jobs of the city, and we're in fairly good shape there. Where we've been really missing the boat is that no affirmative action, or we haven't been doing any aggressive recruiting for people who are with higher kinds of technical qualifications.
Compton says that the current civil service test required of all job seekers in the city of Fort Worth is going to be abandoned because it places too much emphasis on intellectuality and not enough on basic human skills, those needs relevant to the city of Fort Worth. Compton says that we're going to have to hire about 200 minority group members a year for the next couple of years in order to get the Fort Worth city staff up to the population standards of the city of Fort Worth. And with the hiring of the new Equal Employment Commissioner, we may be able to do just that. Jay Lewis, Channel 8 News on the Move, Fort Worth.
I'm basically interested in bringing about a greater understanding and activating more young people into city government and what goes on in their city. I'm also trying to bring an understanding between the young people and the, quote, establishment. I don't think there should be any kind of a gap there. Of course, there has been all through history, and there always will be, but we can at least try and bridge that gap as many ways as possible. I think the young people have a right to have a voice in the city of Dallas, and when they have something to say, a lot of times they're not listened to simply because they're young, or they wear their hair long, or they dress funny, or they're seen on the streets a lot, or what have you. Nonetheless, they're active people in the community, and as more times they're turned off by the establishment, they become disgruntled and discouraged and refuse to cooperate in the system sense and go about doing the things their own way. Now, I think with myself being, I think, the only long hair and the only young person as being 26 on this commission, that I am an active voice for the young people and would like to remain as such for the young people.
Mesquite police are baffled over the mysterious disappearance of Susan Darlene Shaw. Susan who weighs approximately 110 pounds, is about 5 feet 4 inches tall, has blue eyes and long light brown hair, disappeared from the Sweet Cream Donut Shop here at 4315 Gus Thomason Road. Police are baffled in that less than 4 nights ago, another couple, Mr. and Mrs. Covey, disappeared from the Mr. M store less than 4 blocks down the street. Mesquite police have checked out all leads but have come up with nothing. Anyone knowing the whereabouts of Susan Darlene Shaw or Forrester Covey and his wife Gina, please contact the Mesquite Police Department. Gene McIntyre for Channel 8 News on the Move in Mesquite.
Well, I think public housing is one of the really colossal bad programs that the federal government has put a lot of money into. There are communities in which if you want to find out exactly what shouldn't be done, you just drive around to every public housing project there is. They were too big. They were built under austerity budgets that made them ugly to start with, and the people in them didn't know enough to make them pretty if they knew enough just to keep them at what they were built at. The Pruitt-Igoe project in St. Louis and projects all throughout the country are just abysmal examples of way to waste federal dollars. So the federal program may move into new directions, but I, for one, am not a firm believer in its capacity to do so. It's administered by people who, at the local level, by and large, don't believe in it, and don't want it, or not sympathetic of or representative of the people who are supposedly the beneficiaries. And it's highly unlikely to expect that the old traditional public housing project has any real future in this country.
It's a process of really meeting the right people, and it's also a process of disseminating information about the potential of the Texas industry. We do that by means of letters and personal visits, and really by word of mouth in many cases, counting on Texans who are already in the industry on both sides of the country. We're getting a lot of returnees from the East and West Coasts, Texans returning home to begin making movies where they were born.
Why not, in the first place? Dallas is much more centrally located. You can get to locations easier if you're going to shoot outside from Dallas than you can from Los Angeles. Much closer to there. There are many places in Texas that have not been shot that are beautiful places to shoot motion pictures. Dallas has a great deal of the kind of feeling in it that I want to put in films. I want to make family films again. I want to make films where people can go with their relatives, whether they're older or younger or whatever, and enjoy and be entertained. Unfortunately, in Los Angeles now, that kind of film is relatively looked down on. I don't mean that they're not making them. They're making some of them. Walt Disney always makes good films like that. These won't be Walt Disney-type films necessarily, but they will be entertainment for an entire family. And there's much more of an atmosphere of acceptance of that type of film being made here in Dallas than there is in Los Angeles.
This is your first year to contribute to Taste of Dallas, Ev. What made you decide to cook Syrian food?
Well, primarily we're in the steak business, and to keep steak warm without overcooking it is a pretty hard task. So we decided to cook the Lebanese dish kibbeh, which is really the national dish of Lebanon. We take lean, raw steak and defat it, all the sinew removed, mix it with this real fine imported ground wheat with a lot of spice, put it in this pan, and put an inner layer of lamb and pine nuts and pomegranate in between, and then we bake it.
Are you changing it in any way to serve it tonight?
Well, we eat this raw in the old country, and we eat it raw here. We are baking it tonight because we don't want anyone to think we're trying to poison them.
How do you think Dallasites are going to react to this food?
Boy, we sure hope they love it because we think it's the best in the whole world.
Your defense against Dallas was excellent, but you seemed to lack the scoring punch. In fact, you were the only one that got a clean shot in. Has anything been done to rectify that?
Well, I think actually playing against Dallas, it was a tight game all the way anyway. And in these kind of games, there's not that many real good scoring opportunities. And when you get a little more loosely played game, I think you'll see a lot more scoring chances and a lot more goals potted by the clubs.
Well, I started when I was 7. My mother kind of started me out, but then she decided to let me quit because, you know, she didn't want me to following in a footsteps of a famous parent. And so then I started again when I was 11 and then just played from then on.
What do you consider the strong point of your game?
I guess my forehand. I'm learning, well, my forehand's always been my best shot, but now I'm kind of learning a different forehand. And I'm kind of changing all my shots, but my forehand would be the best, I guess.
Sometimes a tennis player gets behind and really has to sort of find out what's wrong. Is it a competitive instinct that forces you into this sort of position where you can adjust and assume the lead and take the match?
Well, yes, I guess that was what you'd say, because, you know, like when you're in there, you just, you know, you want to win, and so I guess that just kind of urges you on, you know, if you're losing, or if you're winning, it keeps you on winning, you know, like that.
Have you talked to many people? I'm sure you have, but your mother had this, did she not?
Mm-hmm. Yes, she kept on winning. She never really lost, and I think she probably had the best competitive instinct of anybody I've ever met in my whole life.
What are your aims?
My aims are to, well, compete at Wimbledon and maybe to travel along with the United States if I get that far. But I really want to do really well in tennis and, you know, continue to play most of my life.
Ross, Omaha isn't supposed to be as good this year as they were last year. How do you envision playing them tonight?
Well, really, I'm not so sure about how they're built up over last year. They've lost a lot of good hockey players, I know that. And overall, I don't think they can be as strong, but they've got a lot of young kids coming in, and I know they're a fast skating bunch. I've watched them practice a couple of times, and I see they can fly.
Overall, do you think the Fort Worth Hockey Club is faster than Omaha?
Well, I haven't really had a chance to compare the two yet, but I am very optimistic about our club as a whole, and I think we'll do real well against them.
Are you going to change the way you played against Dallas, or pretty much keep the same system?
I think we'll have to stick to pretty well our same system. It's worked for us before, and I can't see why it won't work again.
Phil, I think the answer is obvious. If you take a look at any of our cities today and see the traffic stalled and the shabby neighborhoods, the interspersion of land uses, people can't get along, they can't get light and air. This individual doing what they want, where they want, what they want is led to, with my opinion, the chaos that we're trying to clean up now.
Have planning attitudes changed any in the last quarter of a century, or are they about to change in the next 10 or 15 years?
Very much so. One that I like very much. I see the people themselves. I might say that I advocate what we call the philosophy of the 3 Ps, the people, planners, and the politicians. I think in the past there's been too much planning by the planners until finally the politicians have gotten into it, more correctly, I guess, called public officials. But I see in the last 5 or 10 years the people coming into the program and more having themselves heard and insisting that they have a voice in their own destiny, and this is good.